Rewritten! As he expected, the moment that the Diamonds heard that Stephen was on Homeworld and wanted to see them, they were more than eager to pretty much drop everything and scramble to the meeting room. The meeting room was suggested by Volleyball. It was a place that the Diamonds hadn't used for a long time before Stephen came and fixed up their empire and got them to use more communication between each other. It was impossibly massive, as the whole Gleaming Palace was, just to make sure that it fit the Diamonds' gigantic heights. The table and the chairs were fit for the Diamonds as well. Each at least were 30 feet tall, the seat at 15 feet, with the table as long as 2 football fields. There were 3 chairs for yellow, blue, and white, and one smaller chair that used to be Pink's on top of the table, since she was the littlest Diamond and wouldn't have been able to see the top of the table if she had a normal-sized chair on the floor. Even though the 3 Diamonds took their respective seats, Stephen ignored his mother's. That wouldn't help his case that he'd been trying to make to them, that he wasn't Pink Diamond, he wasn't even her replacement. He was Stephen. It was such a hard concept because the gems don't have children like humans do. They just pop out of the ground. The idea of a new being having the same gem as a person who died sounds like someone just getting a new form to them. In conclusion, the Diamonds had only just begun to catch on, and he didn't want to ruin the mentality that he'd built up already. He stood away from the chair, in between the 3 Diamonds, with Spinel and Volleyball. Spinel nervously had requested to hold his hand, which he obviously allowed, knowing that this was probably going to be a horribly stressful conversation for her. Volleyball was standing opposite to Spinel, her hands folded behind her back and her singular eye wide as she stared up at the Diamonds. She gave a respectful bow, even though she didn't need to anymore. Maybe it was just a habit. The 3 Diamonds were truly powerful creatures. Even their presence made Stephen feel weak and insignificant. Yellow Diamond was made of sharp angles and points, her clothes mostly comprised of tough armor, tight-fitted to her body. Much like her former Pearl, her gem was on her chest, glimmering in the light, proudly presented like a peacock's plumage. She had a helmet that covered up her hair, with its angular golden eyes that peered down at them condescendingly at first, but then lit up whenever she spotted Stephen. Blue Diamond was softer and slimmer than Yellow, her face ovular and her eyes drooping. Her hair fell in soft waves over her shoulders and back, like she'd taken a whole river and hung it from her head. Her clothes were deep blue robes that layered over each other, hanging off of her and trailing behind her as she moved. Her gem was on her chest as well, but she tended to hide it shyly instead, in the same way that Blue Pearl had learned. White Diamond was the tallest and most powerful out of all 3 of them. She was a shining white, her skin seeming to be radiating its own glow, her black painted lips, eyelashes, and fingernails contrasting it sharply. Her clothes were silky and in shades of black and silver, glittering like 1,000 stars in a galaxy. She always had a perfect smile, her back straight, her posture screaming importance, her eyes a pale platinum that warned others to look away. Her gem was on her forehead, polished and clear, so sparkly that it felt like he needed sunglasses. Stephen didn't like looking at White Diamond. It wasn't because of ugliness. White Diamond was glamorous and pristine, a radiance that no other gem could match. But something always bothered him about her. It was like she was too shiny, too perfect. Her black nails were razor-sharp and like a falcon's talons, making his stomach and his gems squirm uneasily. Her dark ebony lips and straight, wider-than-white teeth unsettled him almost as much as the even, smooth, self-important tone that her voice strung out with every word. She was so tall that it seemed excessive. I mean, who needs to be 50 feet anyway? He already had to look up to anyone who wasn't like 5'6", so why did she have to be so threateningly big that she could probably squash the life out of him with a twitch of her finger? He hated her long-lashed eyes, the way that they lidded down in relaxation, her diamond-shaped pupil white and ghostly, surrounded by an iris of solid pale iron. Even worse than the simple look of her inhuman eyes was the expression that she always wore in them. Not exactly mean, but still condescending and way too sweet, like she wasn't really listening to you, seeming to decide that she was being kind to let you speak at the moment. Not really taking in your words, just sort of thinking to herself that your little mouth sounds were adorably amusing. Stephen never brought this all up to anybody, but he always felt uncomfortable around White Diamond. He didn't show it, he'd tried to be nice just as she was trying to be nice, but something about her always rubbed him the wrong way, just enough to make him tense up every time that she was in the same room as him. Anyways, the 3 Diamonds were basically gem goddesses, and they thought Stephen to be one of them. After they had all gathered, smiling down at him, he tried to slow down and think about what he was going to say. He had to do this carefully. Spinel was right, even though he didn't want to worry her. He could get in trouble for this. Even though he was a diamond, he was still seen as the littlest diamond. And if they punished Pink with the Dark Time Tower before, and even did it once with him, they'd definitely do it again. Hello, everybody. I'm glad you could all make it, he began once everyone was settled. Of course, Stephen. We'd never miss a chance to see you again, White beamed, interrupting him with a smile so sweet that it could cause a cavity. He paused, frowning. She almost used his mom's name. Yeah, he nodded. So, I need to talk to you guys about something that we've been ignoring for a while. How long will you be staying? Blue leaned forward. He stopped again, blinking. White's ghost eyes were tracking him closely, and he didn't like it. I don't know, a day, maybe less. I have a lot of things that need to happen, so hopefully we can wrap this up quickly. That's not enough time to give you a tour, Yellow interrupted. Maybe you should stretch to stay longer. I have to show you all the planets that I gave up and all the gems that I didn't shatter today. You would be so pleased. They weren't listening to him. He needed to get into the conversation before this just turned into, look at how we improved, Stephen. Please come live with us in the palace. That's very good, but Spinel needs to talk to you about Pink Diamond, he said quickly, pointing to the shivering pink gem that had been hiding behind him until now. Spinel? White gasped, as if she'd just noticed her. What are you doing outside of the Dark Time Tower? Yellow demanded. Spinel shrank back in fear, her hand tightening around Stephen's arm. I let her out, Stephen said boldly, and I came here to tell you three that you absolutely cannot leave Spinel in there again. Why not? She won't learn if she doesn't get punishment, Blue began. Yeah, but you're punishing her in the wrong way for the wrong things, Stephen countered. He sighed, rubbing his temples before saying, Look, you all have very different opinions about Pink Diamond because you had very different experiences of her. Try to think about this in Spinel's perspective. White waved her eerily slender hand, groaning dramatically. But I already did that today with an amethyst who wore her hair unevenly. Isn't that enough? What? He glared at her. No, you need to... Blue turned to Yellow and suggested, gesturing to Stephen, maybe we can show him, all the improvements that we've made. Maybe he'd calm down then. She. Stephen felt jabs every time Blue's words slipped, his patience being chipped away. Yes, that's a great idea, Yellow nodded proudly, as if he wasn't even there. Spinel's hand was so tight around his that he could feel his arm starting to fall asleep. Frustration crackled up inside of him, the glowing warmth returning to his cheeks. They weren't listening to him at all. They were just trying to make this about them, again. Guys, this isn't about me! Stephen shouted before he could stop himself, the rebounded, magic-boosted sound waves making them all jump as his gem roared of pink energy. This is about Spinel! Volleyball squeaked in fear, dodging back from him in horror in her remaining eye. Her hand flew up to guard her broken eye, breathing fast and shallow. He touched his face, able to feel the pink shine. He suddenly remembered that Volleyball's eye had been cracked during one of his mom's outbursts. He was freaking the poor scarred pearl out just by raising his voice. Sorry, Volleyball, Stephen began, pushing the glow down before he was interrupted. Spinel looks fine to me, Yellow shrugged. It was only going to be for one more day. The Golden Monarch chuckled in amusement. She said it herself. She could do 6,000 years standing on her head. Spinel winced, shuffling awkwardly as she nodded and forced a laugh, saying agreeably, Yeah, you're right, Yellow. She turned to him, mumbling, Stephen, just let it go. I'm fine. See? Did you see what just happened there? Stephen gasped in exasperation, pointing from Yellow to Spinel. Yellow's brush off of her trauma made Spinel believe that her fear wasn't valid. How did the diamonds not see this as clearly as he did? This is another problem you guys are causing! He sighed in irritation, running his fingers through his curly hair, knowing that his gem's glow was showing through his face again even as he tried to stop it. He could see Volleyball backing up further, still looking panicked. This was getting too chaotic. He said, You know what? I'm taking Spinel back to Earth. You guys obviously aren't equipped to take care of her. That got a bad reaction. The three diamonds abruptly stood up, nearly knocking their giant chairs over, all three of them yelling things like, What? No! Pink, you can't! We'll be so bored again! Stephen could feel the magic pulsing through his veins, flooding through him in defense. White Diamond's horrible black nails were reaching towards him, making him choke and step back. A flash of bad memories blinded him before he shook it away again, a hand holding onto his gem like it would fall out of him. He had to focus. On top of that, the anger was pushed even further from the use of his mom's name instead of his own. He wasn't Pink, he was Stephen. Why couldn't they just accept that? He shouted back at them, Yeah, well, too bad! I am not gonna roll over and just let you do that to her again! Pink, you can't just hog all the fun from us, White complained in a pouting whine. Stephen felt another twitch of irritation from her slip, intentional or not. I'm Stephen, and I'm not hogging the fun. I'm just trying to stop you from making Spinel worse. She's not a toy! He snapped back. Fine, if you're going to take her away, at least stay here with us where you belong, White insisted, her painted black lips curved in displeasure. Haven't we done enough for you? We've liberated our colonies, and the rules haven't been this relaxed in eons. What more could you want? Yes, Pink, stop all this foolishness on Earth and come live with us in the palace. We miss you, Blue pleaded, reaching a car-sized hand to him like she wanted to pet his head. She said Pink again. What? You shouldn't be doing those good things just because you want me to come back. Don't you realize how messed up that is? Stephen said, uncharacteristically furious and hardly knowing why he couldn't keep his voice level. He pointed vigorously to himself and yelled, "And, again, I'm Stephen, not Pink!" The diamonds just stared down blankly at him in confusion, exchanging glances of each other. He felt like he was trying to teach deaf pigs how to fly. Volleyball was waving her hand from a safe distance to get his attention. I mean, I can't say I disagree with Blue. Why can't things just go back to the way that they were before? I liked Pink. Wouldn't it just be easier that way? Just stop being Stephen and everything will be normal again. Honestly, we should have never let you go back. You're just confused. Yella put her hands on her hips and turned to White. I say that Pink has had enough time to get it out of her system and needs to go back to her rightful place in the authority. Pink. Why did they want him to be Pink? Why did they want her more than they wanted him? Spinel had been quiet all this time, to where Stephen actually forgot that she was there. But now she jumped to his aid, screaming up at them. He is not Pink! I'm not Pink! And even if we were, you shouldn't want us around! How long will it take to get it through your thick skulls that she wasn't some beautiful angel child? The expression on the diamonds' faces were like burning venom. Spinel seemed to immediately regret what she did. She scampered back behind Stephen, whimpering, I'm sorry, forget I said that! Pink, surely you understand why Spinel must be punished, White boomed, her chin raised like she was scolding a bad dog. You can't let your subjects disrespect you like that, especially right in front of you. And if you're going to continue acting like this, we'll be forced to leave you in the Darktime Tower until you've learned your lesson. That was it. He couldn't take it anymore. He felt the explosion of pink light snapping over his skin to envelop it completely, unable to be contained any longer, his voice amplifying out of control. Oh my stars, I'm Stephen! How hard is that to comprehend? He hollered, the table underneath his feet rupturing into starburst cracks from the amplified blast. Fear shrank through all the others' expressions. But he didn't stop. He liked the fear. It made them shut up and finally listen to him. Can you not pronounce Stephen? He continued in a spitting rant, every vein roaring and pounding with blood as his voice rapidly increased to a roar. It's like one syllable longer than Pink! Here, say it with me! Stephen! Stephen! The last word was blasted outwards from him in a wave, booming with his enraged magic, sending deep ravines into the table. The whole palace jumped in the sharp echoes that jabbed at the walls, like a kicked animal shivering from fright. Pain split into his ears, a ringing following the faded rebounds, a warm trickle of blood falling from either sides of his face. Spinel had been blown away from him, the diamonds struggling to regain their footing, and Volleyball was curled up into a tight ball, bursting into petrified tears. Stephen was heaving with rage as the echoes faded down the halls, his body trembling with every breath as he radiated heat like a trash fire. He scowled at each of the three diamonds, pinning them under his searing gaze, silently daring for them to argue with him. None of them did. They were too stunned. And then he glanced back at Spinel and Volleyball, his glare loosening slightly as he saw them. Spinel pushed herself to her feet, hurrying over to where Volleyball was, kneeling down and asking if she was okay, trying to calm her down. Volleyball, she was on the floor, arms thrown over her head, weeping from terror, a hand clamped over her broken eye, the one that his mother had shattered so long ago. The two small pink gems looked back at him, frozen fear in their eyes like mice cornered in a den of a lion. They were afraid of him. The fury dissipated like smoke as he blinked, his expression shivering into horror. He stared at them all again, this time speechless, breathing so hard that it hurt, seeing what he had caused. Oh no, he was making it worse, so much worse. He didn't want this. Why had he gotten so out of control? Again! He stared down at his hands, which were such a bright, shimmering pink that it made him squint. He was failing. This wasn't going the way that he'd envisioned at all. Usually they'd be coming to a happy conclusion by now, not continuing to shout at each other. Why had he suddenly gotten so bad at this? I'm sorry. He had tried to apologize, but realized very quickly that he couldn't speak or breathe. His hands gripped at his throat, choking, alarm fluttering inside of him. He could feel his skin swelling again, tighter and tighter, the pressure squeezing his windpipe. What was happening? Swelling was a symptom that had appeared more recently regarding his gem powers. It appeared on random parts of his body in moments like this, sometimes causing him to grow to the size of an elephant, sometimes just distorting his features. And this one was in his throat. He tried to just sit through it, knowing that it usually went away in a few seconds, but this time it didn't let up. The longer that it lasted, the more panicked he became. He couldn't breathe, he couldn't breathe, he couldn't breathe. The Diamonds were conversing amongst themselves, with their backs turned. Spinell was focused on Volleyball now. He couldn't make a sound. All he could hear was the ringing in his own heartbeat as it slammed against his ribcage like it was trying to escape its prison. His gem couldn't be acting up now. He had to fix this problem first. He fell to the side, his mouth gaping open without drawing breath, with his fingers scratching uselessly at his neck, frantically trying to signal that something was wrong, anything to get their attention. Jasper was the one that was strangling him. Her hand was clenched around his throat, vice-like and crushing, her features twisted and furious. Stephen gawked up at her, not knowing what was happening, trying to release her hold of him, but she was far too strong. "Why did you shatter me, Stephen?" she asked him, shaking him roughly as his body spasmed. "Why do you think you won't shatter them too?" Stephen couldn't reply. He could hardly think. He could feel his own struggles becoming weaker, his lungs folding in on themselves as they tried to give him air, the horrible pressure trapping him. Jasper's hand tightened as she growled deep in her throat like a prowling tiger. "You deserve this, you know. I'm saving them from you. What's wrong, Stephen? What's wrong? What's wrong?" Her voice began to slide away into another. "What's wrong? Stephen, what are you doing? Stop that, Pink. It's very unflattering. Why, something's wrong. Well, maybe if she wasn't a human, she'd be fine." Even their argument faded away at this point. He felt the world teeter and fall, dunking him into a stinging, painful darkness. All that he could think about was how much worse he had made it. How he failed.